Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I'm so frustrated with my toxic family and absolutely need to tell someone about how I took my revenge on them. I don't come from old money or anything, but my parents are fairly well off. We went on family vacations. My mom has always worn nice clothes and jewelry, and they both have their individuals. So you can picture how things were pretty comfortable growing up for my sister and I, except for one thing. For some reason, I always thought my parents didn't like me. It was sort of an ever present sad reality of my childhood. For context, I have an older sister who was pretty much raised in a completely different way than I ever was. She's 5.5 years older than me, and to put it bluntly, has done nothing remarkable to get such obviously preferential treatment. I always felt like she got whatever she asked for, and my parents were always telling everyone how proud they were of her, even for doing completely ordinary things. But I was the one left out. I'm not even going to get started on the trauma that behavior had on me for years. I never really understood why things were the way they were until very, very recently. As I've mentioned already, I'm suing my parents. It was in this process that I found out that the reason my parents always seem to neglect me is because I might not be my dad's bio kid. The story is that my mom had a coworker she was very close friends with, and my dad has always suspected that I'm not his. They chose to move on with their relationship because of my sister, and eventually my dad forgave my mom. But I was the permanent reminder of what went wrong between them. Wish I could tell you guys how that feels. Ha ha. But that's something I found out very recently. So throughout my childhood, I just assumed that I was not good enough compared to my sister for some reason. My sister graduated high school and went to a fancy private college, fully paid for by my parents with her college fund. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming that they'll pay for my college as well. Back then, I didn't expect that their bias against me goes so deep that they wouldn't mind potentially throwing me into lifelong debt. But well, now I know better. At the beginning of my senior year, my sister got married to her college boyfriend because she got pregnant. They had both graduated at the time and were barely making anything at their jobs. My parents offered to step forward and pay for their entire wedding, and obviously, my sister accepted the offer. The ceremony was really nice and had a lot of people, and I was a bridesmaid. If only I knew what was the real cost of this wedding. End of high school, and it's time to apply to college. Applications can get pretty expensive, so I decided to ask my parents if I could have some of the money from my college funds. Imagine how I felt when they said they didn't have a college fund for me in the first place, and that I was expected to pay for college myself no matter where I applied to. I was absolutely devastated, to say the least. After assuming I had a safety net my whole life, I was basically thrown into deep waters alone. I asked them how they had a fund for my sister and not for me, and they said it was left by my late grandparents, and there was only enough for one kid. I didn't really know how to react to that. My grandparents had both passed out shortly after one another when I was around 11, so it was not like I could ask them. Anyway, fast forward to the future, and I went to community college because I didn't want to end up in massive student debt. But I gotta say, things worked out for me in the end because I worked really, really hard in college and managed to transfer to an amazing college after my first year on an almost full scholarship. I did have to take a small student loan to finance the rest of my education, but that was fine for me. I did great in college and my master's, and I'm currently working as an HR manager in a finance firm. Life sure hasn't been easy, but it has worked out great. No thanks to my parents. Since I went to college, I've tried to distance myself from my parents as much as possible. They've never shown any remorse or even apologized once for ruining my plans for the future. Not to mention the obvious favoritism they've shown towards my sister my whole life. I barely talk to them a couple of times a year and prefer it that way. So I was surprised when a month ago I suddenly got a call from my mother out of the blue. I was worried someone was sick, but what she said just proved her obvious disdain for me. As soon as I picked up, she started rambling about how I never reach out to them and I'm basically abandoning my family. I could hardly believe my ears when she said something even more ridiculous. She told me that she will forgive me and look past everything if I help them out with something. I was obviously not giving in to any of this emotional blackmail, but I thought of playing along just to see what absurdity she had in mind and asked her what I had to do. She then told me that my sister had split up with her husband because she had an affair with some other guy and got pregnant, and my brother-in-law found out. He left her, and now she had moved in with my parents because she didn't have a job, and now they needed my help to pay for all the expensive pregnancy stuff because I'm well off and family should be there for each other. I lost my temper at that. I started screaming at where all this love for the family went when I had to give up my dreams of going to an Ivy League because they didn't have a cent to pay for my college. I also let out all the frustration I had about always being treated as a liability and my parents not only paying for my sister's expensive college education, which she wasted by becoming a stay-at-home wife, and never working a day in her life, but also her elaborate wedding, which they paid for voluntarily. Things became really heated, and my mom also lost her temper and started crying in a fit of rage. I guess she didn't think of what she was saying and told me that I was the root of all problems in her marriage anyway, and that she's glad she spent my grandparents' college fund for my sister's wedding because I don't deserve anything anyway. She quickly realized what she said, but it was already too late. This was the first time I had ever heard of a college fund in my name. I asked her what she meant by that, and she started denying everything. I also asked her what she meant by me being a problem in her and Dad's marriage, and she just said she didn't mean anything by that and hung up on me. Well, that's how I started on my journey to find out about all the secrets they have kept from me. My biggest discoveries? Infidelity and inheritance theft. I can't really do anything about the infidelity except maybe try to find my bio dad, but I don't know if I'm even ready for that. And who knows how he will react to having a 24-year-old daughter all of a sudden. The inheritance, though, I'm taking them to court and getting my well-deserved money. My parents are saying I'm being overdramatic and ruining the family for something in the past, and that they can't afford court drama. AITA here? A lot of people have asked me how exactly I found out about my family's secrets. Well, the infidelity part was easy. I showed up at my mom's door, asking her to tell the truth and threatening to do a paternity test if she refuses. She was really hesitant, but I was really firm and even threatened to post on social media if she refused to tell me, which finally made her confess. She wouldn't tell me who the father was, no matter what, except saying it's an old coworker. She also made me promise not to talk to my dad about any of this, saying she doesn't want to revisit her mistakes. So I can add being called a mistake by my own mother to my list of experiences. After telling me everything, she tried to blackmail me into helping out my sister with her pregnancy because unplanned pregnancies can be just so hard. I stormed out, saying that maybe she could start using that fancy degree they paid for instead of guilt tripping me. So here's how I found out about my grandpa's will and the inheritance theft committed by my lovely parents. I talked to a friend who's in law school, and he told me I could probably get a copy of the will from the country's probate court. Apparently, they became public records once filed. It took a lot of searching and buying a coffee and a box of donuts for the lady at the courthouse for all her help. But I managed to find it after hours of going through the archives. Sure enough, my name was listed as a beneficiary, and I was never made aware of it. It wasn't a huge amount in any way, but more than enough to comfortably pay for college and all related experiences. I don't know if my parents spent all of it on the wedding because it's honestly a lot to spend on just one day. My suspicion is that they kept spending from the fund after my grandparents passed and used whatever was left at the time of my sister's wedding for her ceremony. I can't believe I was snubbed out of my dream education and rightful inheritance because of two people who were just too scared to get a damn divorce. The look on their faces when I showed up with a copy of the will after all these years and told them I'll be suing was priceless. People have asked me if I have tried talking to my parents and settling things outside of court. My answer to that is no. I think it's not even about money for me at this point. I just want to give them as much trouble as possible. I know they cannot afford the trial, so it will give me a lot of satisfaction to see what they plan on doing. Personally, I'm hoping they will beg me to forgive them. That might seem a little sadistic, but I think they deserve it for all they have done to me. NTAOP, I can't believe your parents didn't feel the moral weight of letting a child face the fallout of a failed adult relationship. I don't even understand why they stayed together in the first place. I'm glad you know the truth now, and I love how petty you're being. Give them hell, OP. ESH. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think you're taking it too far. Obviously, your parents have done you wrong by taking your inheritance and treating you badly your whole life over something you had no control over. But as you've said, you don't even care about the money. You also had cut them off successfully. So why bring up bad blood? Your parents are selfish and you're petty. ESH. The building I work in has 4 people, including myself. Each of us has our own office, but we share a central kitchen, sitting area. All of the furniture in the building is provided by the institution we work for, and we are granted a department fund every year that we can use to replace any outdated, broken furniture or purchase any additional furniture we would like, within reason, from our institution's supplier. Recently, my coworker has expressed interest in getting a dining set for our shared kitchen space to eat lunches at, and has been asking me and the other 2 people in our building for their input. I told her that it really did not matter to me, as I always eat my lunch in my office and would not use a dining set. She has been looking through the approved suppliers catalog for a few days now, but apparently has not been happy with any of their options. Today, she arrived with a dining set she had brought herself with her own money from a certain Scandinavian department store. aka not our approved supplier. She asked me to help her put it together, which I did. The problem arose from her next question when she informed me that she had paid $100 of her own money to purchase it and then asked me to contribute $25 so the four of us in the building could split the cost. I refused, saying that I did not want the dining set to begin with and was not planning to use it. I also reminded her that we could have gotten one for free from our supplier. She became very upset with me and said how it was rude of me not to contribute my fair share. The other two people in my building begrudgingly gave her $25 to avoid a scene and suggested I do the same. I still refused, and my coworker has been steaming over it all day. I know that $25 isn't a grand sum of money, but I don't see why I should have to pay for something unnecessary that I am not going to use. Does that make me an AH? NTA, your coworker is a jackass. She was buying a table for the office, not making personal decorating decisions for her home. It really doesn't matter that she was not happy with any of the tables in the catalog. Again, the kitchen area was not her personal property. If she had asked you up front for a contribution to the purchase, she would have received solid feedback that would have guided her choices. She did not. IMO, she should eat the table she bought for your kitchen, no pun intended. Your coworkers should not have been guilted into giving her $25 each, but that was their choice. I don't know anyone who hasn't contributed something to an office area, be it a plant, coffee pot, a table, a chair, etc. None of these people ever asked for a reimbursement. When people move on and they take their stuff with them or not. NTA, you'd already said you weren't interested in using one. It's a job, not a home you own. If she gets fired, she will try to take it with her, and it's going to be drama. I'd quietly suggest to the other people that they sign something saying it now belongs to the company, or she has to pay them back for the set. Nothing against the store, but what is wrong with the big blue department store that is just about every 30 miles? Or the catalog sets? Is she moving in? Going to have epic feasts? It's for work. Most people leave for home as soon as possible. NTA, she asked. You answered. She ignored you. Now she may learn to believe people when they tell her something, or not. But that is not your responsibility. I have been living and working on my parents' farm for over 2 decades. When my father retired 4 years ago, I was given full control of the farm and property. Over time, due to urbanization, our area has changed quite a bit. To describe the area, my family owns 4 large fields separated by the main road. To access the fields, my family has constructed 2 private roads on our side of a tree line that marks the property line. My problems, admittedly, were a long time coming with urbanization, as my farm became the border between the town and open farmland. On the other side of the tree property line, there are new housing developments, and across the main road is a shopping center. With my town being a popular pit stop, the roads and businesses can get quite busy. The consequence of this is that people have been parking on my private road despite private property and no parking signs. This severely impedes farm operations because it would get to the point farm equipment and trucks could not leave or enter either of my properties. In the past, I have called the police to deal with trespassers, but their assistance is limited and slow. I have also tried installing gates, but removed them after complaints from truck drivers and my farmhands. The cure to all of this came in the form of a contract I made with a local towing company. I installed their signs along with some security cameras. Whenever someone parks on my road, I can see it from my office and can call the company to have it towed at the owner's expense. This is what happened 4 days ago with the car that blocked a truck driver. coming for a pickup. As per the contract, I called the company and within 45 minutes, it was gone. I didn't know this at the time, but the owner was a lady who lived in the new development. Yesterday, I got a visit from her. She came by to demand I reimburse her. She said that since I didn't notify her or the development, it was an illegal tow. When she said that, I wound up snickering as I literally had signs warning against parking on the road. She wound up calling me an a-hole and threatening HOA involvement when I told her I won't reimburse her and that she can leave. Am I the a-hole? NTA laughed hard in her face, then continued to laugh and tell her, please get her HOA involved so you can laugh in their faces also. Then tell her she is trespassing, and if she doesn't leave your property, you will have her arrested, and this time you are letting her know personally. Not your problem, she didn't pay attention to the posted signs. But honestly, who needs a sign to know you can't party on someone else's property? NTA, threatening you with an HOA, I assume you're not a part of? Yeah, that's scary. If she can't read the signs of where she parks or somehow thinks it doesn't apply to her and didn't bother to do any due diligence to know about the parking rules where she lives, her fault. She can consider it a rather cheap lesson. If she does it again, she has no excuse. Maybe toss back at her that if she attempts to threaten you with an HOA you're not a part of, you might be willing to get lawyers involved to have people from said HOA who are breaking established rules start fining their residents for whatever legal costs you might incur. If it's a decent HOA, shush, don't laugh. They might actually nip it in the bud. NTA, people need to learn how to read, and her HOA can't do anything to you. If you want to be nice, though, arrange to attend an HOA meeting and explain that the roads and driveways are private property for farm use only, and that all parked cars will be towed at the owner's expense.